Welcome into Seahawks Today. I am your host, Will Ortner, and I'm coming to you live from the humble abode. Had some breaking news that I wanted to make sure I got to for Wednesday's practice with your Seattle Seahawks. Whenever you want breaking news, I am going to be there live on the scene, breaking it down, whether that's in the studio or if I'm at home. Make sure that you subscribe to the channel here on Seahawks Today so that way you can get the latest news, information, and anything else that you could want on your favorite Team 12s. The other cool thing about subscribing to this channel, you can join us for watch parties. We're going to be live on Sunday, an hour before the game, wherever you're watching, when the Seahawks take on the Saints at Lumen Field. Got to get that first home win. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel so that way you can be there hanging out and having a good time with us. Now, there were two names that were not super shocking to me that were not involved with practice today, and that's Devon Witherspoon and Emmanwori. I've been kind of talking about both of their injuries throughout most of the week, so you know what I've been going through when I've talked about this Team 12s of, hey, Emmanwori, he's dealing with a high ankle sprain. They do seem to be hopeful as an organization that he's going to be back and hopefully out and moving and running and grooving around at practice at the end of the week. And frankly, I think that's some really good news, because if you're able to get Emmanwori out at practice and he's able to move, I don't know if it's necessarily the best news for him to go this week. But if he's able to get out, get moving, and kind of get the juices flowing, not necessarily even be a full participant in practice, but just be a half participant in practice. Show us that you can be healthy. That's going to be huge for this team and huge for this secondary. Obviously, he wasn't able to go today. That's fine. For me, if he's even out there moving around, running around a little bit on Friday, that's going to be a victory. So that's good news that it does sound like he's going to be out and moving and grooving, and he'll be at practice here soon. The other good news is for Devon Witherspoon. Mike McDonald's already come out and said this week that he doesn't necessarily need to practice. He's just, once he's ready to go, they're going to trust him to go out there and go play. They tried to get him ready and ramped up, lathered up against Pittsburgh. Did a full workout. Obviously, he wasn't able to go after he went through that workout. Dealing with an MCL sprain, if you're going to deal with a sprain of one of those ligaments in the knee, that is kind of the knee ligament that you want to have sprained, because there isn't as much of a long-term effect on you or your body, right? So hopefully he's able to get himself ready to go for this Sunday. I think if he was able to move and groove like that, give him some time. It's a bruise. Takes a little bit extra to heal. Otherwise, man, I hope he's able to go on Sunday. I think he will be able to go on Sunday. And I think you're going to keep seeing this defense continue to grow. Josh Jobe has looked fantastic through the first 2 weeks. You're looking at him right now on some of the defensive metrics as one of the best corners in the NFL, if not the best. And then when you're talking about Reek Woolen, look, that last drive against the 49ers was really freaking bad, but the rest of it, he's been pretty nailed, so I've been very impressed with him as well. The other good news that I want to talk about and dive into is that Chase Young still isn't able to go. Now, with New Orleans, Young obviously isn't everything that we thought he was going to be out of Ohio State. Everyone kind of assumed once he came out of Ohio State, hey, here's the next premier defensive end. He's going to be a great edge rusher. He's going to get after QBs. He's going to make a living doing that thing. It's not who he is. That's not where he's been. But he's still a good edge rusher, and he's still someone that you have to be prepared for, and you have to be ready to block and to stop and to find different ways with this offensive line unit how to shut him down. And so when you have a premier pass rush like you've seen out of New Orleans, they already have, multiple guys with multiple sacks on the year. You throw in a guy like Chase Young who hasn't played all season, that can be freaking scary. Now you're talking about Granderson and Cam Jordan having an extra weapon. That would make me worried. Now, what does kind of not make me worried is how well Charles Cross has played, how well Abe Lucas has played. And some of you non-ball knowers are going to come after me and say, but Will, Abe Lucas, and the fumble, and Nick Bosa. That's the only pressure that Nick Bosa really had in that game. And Abe was the first one to tell you, like, hey, he messed up. Figure it out. That's what Washington State Cougars do, right? And so in my eyes, when you can take away an extra edge rusher and you have an offensive line unit Charles Cross specifically, but I do want to make sure Abe Lucas is thrown in this, that has been playing well at that tackle position. That's got to be good news for everybody around. You can focus on the main two culprits. If you can shut down what New Orleans has going on that defense, maybe this offense doesn't get stopped. Because New Orleans isn't a team right now. A lot of people, myself included, kind of had some fun at Trizzy Trace's expense today and said, New Orleans Saints are the worst team in the NFL right now. I don't think so. They're still fighting. They're fighting hard for the Prosser Washington product, who's their head coach, Kellen Moore. So maybe this thing isn't quite done yet. So for the Seahawks, you cannot go into this game looking like you did against the Giants last year. So it is good news that one of the weapons might not be able to go. We don't root for injuries, but when they do go our way, we do have to be ready to take advantage of them. Now, I'm going to get into the bad news, but before I do, I want to talk about the sponsor of this episode. And this episode, of course, is brought to you by PrizePicks. You and I make decisions every day, but on PrizePicks, being right can get you paid. Don't miss any of the excitement this season on PrizePicks, where it's good to be right. PrizePicks is a simple to play. Just pick more or less on any 2 to 6 player stat projections. If your projections are right, you cash in. PrizePicks invented the flex play option, which means you can still cash out if your lineup isn't perfect. You can double your money even if one of your picks doesn't hit. I was playing PrizePicks this weekend. Tell you right now, I should have used the flex play option. Just saying. Download the app today and use code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks. It's good to be right. Now, I want to talk about some of the bad news, and I think the bad news is the shockingness of what your injury report looked like, especially after Mike McDonald went on the Mike McDonald show on Brock and Salk and said, there's no injuries, everyone's fine, don't worry about it, this is no big deal, and then almost immediately backtracked that, right? Now, in my eyes, I assumed then, like, okay, well, Jalen Sundell is going to be on this, Derek Hall is going to be on this, guys who were dealing with, some nicks, some scrapes. Reek Woolen, I figured. Guy I didn't figure, Zach Charbonnet. And now, look, I've come back a little bit. I was basically saying that if he wasn't the number one running back in this unit, that was a failure by everyone on this roster. And hand up, I was wrong. It needs to be a running back duo unit. It needs to be a two-headed monster. You need to use Kenneth Walker, especially after the big playability that he showed that he still has left in the tank against the Pittsburgh Steelers. But Zach Charbonnet is your grinder. He's the type of guy where when there's nothing there, he can go and get a lot of yards. And frankly, he's shown that he's capable, that when he has opportunities to break away and run for a lot of yards, he can do that too. So to have him not ready to go, and it's because he's dealing with a foot injury, that's the same type of injury that Kenneth Walker had. Does that mean he's going to be out for extended time? I'm not ready to say that yet because in my eyes, when I look at foot injuries, especially foot injuries for veteran players, that doesn't necessarily mean, you're playing turf fasciitis is back or you tore something, you broke something. It could just mean, hey, man, foot's a little bit sore, need a vet day. The coaches were able to give that to you, and that's what I hope happened here for Charbonnet. Maybe he'll be a limited participant. By Friday, he's good, ready to go, no injury designation. It's not always the case, though. So when you have someone that you haven't really heard about all of a sudden popping up on the injury report, that makes me nervous, and that freaks me out a little bit. So hopefully it turns out that Zach Charbonnet's injury, it was just one of those veteran extra rest days. The other one that jumped out to me is Julian Love. This is back-to-back weeks where Julian Love has appeared on your injury report. Now, the nice thing is didn't miss any time, was able to go out and play against the Steelers, played well, didn't play as well as he did against the 49ers, but again, who could play as well as he did against the 49ers? The dude was unfreaking believable in that game. So you do kind of have to give him a little bit of the benefit of the doubt there. When it comes to Julian Love, I do trust him. I feel like we've gotten to a point with Julian Love where just show up for game days. Like the way you're playing right now as a safety, being able to get after the passer, already having a sack as well as getting passes defended, jumping in on special teams, making big time plays there. I just feel like you have a special player, right? And I think that's one of those, no duh, Will. Like Julian Love's special player. Well, look, here's the deal when it comes to special players. When you are a special player, you get special treatment. When you get special treatment, you get the Devon Witherspoon, Julian Love. Hey, if you're not able to go during the week, just make sure you're ready to go by Sunday. That's going to be okay. So, yes, it's bad that Julian Love ends up on the injury report again. Yes, it's bad for a secondary player to have a hamstring injury. Offensive linemen can deal with hamstring injuries. Not that I was a good offensive lineman over at Central Washington, but I was fine enough. Had a hamstring injury. It was annoying. Guess what? I was still able to go because I'm not out there having to run 20 yards every other play. Well, Julian Love's going to have to do that, and that's what makes him so dangerous and so good as a player is how quick he is, how athletic he is, how fast he is. So when you do have an injury like that, I worry extra, especially for something that with most hamstring soft tissue injuries, like the only way for them to heal, you to take some time off, you to take a break, you to rest. Julian Love is beginning of the year, you can't do that. So when you're already having a secondary unit that's down 2 players, now you're talking about one of your better players, some might argue your best player, being down. That's really darn scary, right? When I look at this secondary unit, I think that we're seeing the ground floor for them, which is very impressive because I think that they can continue to play at an elite level because that's where they've been playing at. Imagine what they're going to be when they have a full-strength Devon Witherspoon. Imagine what they're going to be when they have their big nickel in Emmanwori, with how well Darian Kendricks has played, right? With how well Josh Jobe has played. Julian Love at full 100% strength. What does that look like? This team is freaking loaded and they're freaking scary, but you have to be able to get there. So for me, when I look at this, yes, there is some bad news. Why is Julian Love on the injury report? But there's also some good news. And the good news is that he was on the injury report last week. Guess what? He was able to go out there and play. So when I look at this, yeah, there's some bad news on this injury report. I don't love that Charbonnet's on there. I don't love that Julian Love's on there. I don't love that you didn't know about it. But there is good news with both of them. One, if Mike McDonald's kind of still giving that ho-hum nonchalantness to it, makes me kind of think that, hey, these injuries aren't something that they're considering as they're going to keep him out of Sunday's game against the Saints. I also wonder to a degree, and please nobody go and tell Trizzy Trace this, do you maybe let a guy or two have this game? Like, hey, they're on the injury report, but we're not too worried. Why aren't you worried? Because you know you're going to be able to take it to the Saints. Now, this being said, the Saints, they haven't given up. I think there's a couple teams that have already given up, and we're talking about giving up in week 3. Talking about Miami, talking about, the Bears. I think at times we've seen those 2 teams kind of just pack it in. Hey, we're down. It's over. Let's get in and get out of here. Where, honestly, when you look at the Saints, they're fighting. They're scratching. They're crawling. Spencer Rattler's looked pretty good. And that's one because you have a Washington product, a Prosser product in Kellen Moore. But 2, it shows that you have a good organization that values winning and that goes and gets players that value winning. So you need as many people as you can at 100% strength. And I got my fingers crossed that some of the people that are on this injured report right now will not be there by Sunday. And you'll be able to see some of these guys like Zach Charbonnet, like Julian Love. Fingers crossed for Emmanwori. Fingers crossed for Devon Witherspoon. And they'll be able to get out there roaming and running around. I do want to wish, before I sign off, a happy Apple Cup to all who celebrate, whether you're a Washington State Cougar fan or you're a Washington Husky fan. West Coast Will here. I'm just going to be rooting for a good game. I will root for the Cougs. I got a lot of family members and friends that are Cougar members. Plus, the Huskies are in the Big Ten. They got all the good stuff. But here on Seahawks Today, we support all of our Washington brothers and sisters. Thank you guys so much for tuning in, and I'll see you next time.